Hello, welcome to my channel. In this video you will learn about how to create the Teams management web part using the SPFX framework. For today I would go through how the SPFX web part can be created. This web part is built for SPFX, especially for SharePoint Online. Uses completely TypeScript and jQuery programming. I'm not going to use any of the JavaScript or the framework, which is the React or the Angular. It's a plain jQuery plus TypeScript, and the full complete UI is based on the Bootstrap and the Phantasm UI. The backend or the queries are used from the Microsoft Graph API, REST API, and most of the operations like the create teams and the create channel and everything based on the REST API with the JSON format. The teams management web part consists of these parts. One is getting the teams and the channels detail. What are the options set for a particular teams and the channels, and ability to create a new team with default setting and the template. And the third one, to create a channel, either the single channel or the multiple channels from the CSV file. This is the URL I will be predominantly using to create a Teams channel or the teams. I'm using the Beta Graph API. Version 1.0 is now in the public. Version 1.0, some of the APIs are not supported, so I would use the Beta Graph API. And some of the end product of the UI you would see. This is for getting the teams. When you click on get all teams, all the teams within your tenant would be pulled from the Graph API. And the second screen is about creating a new team, and the third is about creating a channel for a particular team. So let's start coding for SPFX. So as usual, you can see here I'm going to use the command to create the SPFX. In this situation, the solution name is the SPFX Teams Management, and the web part name is Teams Management. I will run this command, and this command should start creating your web part for SPFX. So now I'm not going to use any of the special permission. No. Yeah, it started creating. Let's wait for the operation to complete. So the framework has successfully created the project. So now I'm going to open the project in the Visual Studio Code. You can see the project opened in Visual Studio Code. I'm going to include jQuery and all the Bootstrap and the Phantasm dependencies. Let's do it directly by adding into the package.json. So let me add the dependencies, the Phantasm first, and other dependencies. Okay, so I have included all the dependencies, and for the types I would use the different types, which is here for the jQuery. I need to use the types for the jQuery, which is here. I would use the types jQuery, and also for the Phantasm you need the URL loader, which is URL loader is for the Phantasm, or else it might fail loading in. So I will load the URL loader as well, and some of the types for the Bootstrap, and what else. I think I have most of them covered. And later also you need to include the Graph API types as well. So let me include that also here. The Graph API types, the latest SPFX framework already comes with the Graph API part, but the types will not be associated with that. To create teams, I'm using the types, which are the class types, which is more of a team and a channel type. So I'll have to include that under the dependency. So this is the one I'm including it. And if you see here, these are the dependencies I am adding in: the graph, jQuery, Bootstrap and the URL loader, and these are the things. Okay, so now all the types have been added. What I need to do is that save this package and include a new terminal and then just run npm install. The npm install will be used. Let's execute this. So the npm install will install all the dependencies which I have included in the package.json and the types. It takes a while to install. Let's wait for it to complete. So now all the operation has been completed. Hopefully everything is installed. So now let's go back to the config file. We need to enter configuration for the jQuery and the Bootstrap. So for that I would add it in the externals. So externals, you just expand and add the dependencies. So these are the dependencies I would include it in the external jQuery. You have to be specific on that. Save the dependencies or the configurations. And next thing I need to do is that I need to navigate to the gulp file.js and add some of the build configuration pack, especially for Phantasm to load properly. So what I'm going to do is that in between this, I'm going to just use this configuration. This configuration is for the Phantasm. If you are not using Phantasm, you don't really need this. So you can skip this step. And the other options which I should do is that to use the Graph API, this is a very important step you should do. You need to add the permission requirement for this particular web part to invoke Teams related commands. So for that, you need to go to the package solution file and look for the domain is isolated. Under that, you need to add the configuration changes or the permissions related to the permissions. So let me bring back all this configuration. Okay, so this is the settings which is very much important. If you see here, you need to specify this for the Graph API. I'm going to use the Teams read, write, as well as create channel and the team. So for that, you need to have group read and user read for getting your logged in user GUID, or when you are adding a add member option, you need that, and the directory read. So these are the minimum permissions you would read. You would need to create teams or to manage the teams within the Graph API. So let's save that. So basic settings are all done. So now you need to go to the main web part code, which is this web part code. And here I need to include the jQuery, Bootstrap, and the animation, whatever the things which you are looking for. So first I need to include the jQuery, which I would do it here. And once you include the jQuery, you need the Bootstrap and the Phantasm. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to include all these here. Okay, so these are the dependencies you would need. In case your UI is different from Bootstrap or the Phantasm, these steps are not required. It's up to you. It's a UI. So my UI is built on Bootstrap and the Phantasm, and some animation happening using the animate.css. So I'm going to include all in my web part. So this has been included, and for sample, let me remove this. Okay, let me remove only, okay, let the container be there. I'll just have one div just to make sure that it works. Okay, this is the main web part. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to include a code to initiate the jQuery. Let me copy this, put it here, and okay, jQuery code. That's it. So this is the bare minimum code. You need to include it in the main class so that the jQuery is invoked. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do the gulp serve. So the gulp serve should build and finally show it in the, okay, it is running and it is waiting for it to load. It has loaded. Now I'm going to include Teams management, and it should include at least the header. Something wrong in the load maybe, so let me check what is the error. Right now it is plain. I think I didn't add any of the text here, so probably I will add Teams management. Let me save. It would start the build. Okay, it is building, and let's wait for it to complete. So once it completes, then we can check. Okay, yes, so you can see here the Teams management. So everything is fine, working with the bare minimum setup. So we can move on to add more code to the settings. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to design the UI first with the Bootstrap and the Font Awesome. Then we go for the coding to plug in the components one by one. So let's start adding the UI, the HTML. To start with that, let me create another. Usually it is a good idea to create a new TypeScript file. Maybe I'll name it as Teams management. Teams management dot ts. So the Teams management dot ts, I'm including it in the new format. So for that, here I need to do is that I need to import the Graph API first, so that the Graph API we would use it in later. And I'm going to create a TypeScript class. This TypeScript class, there is a TypeScript class for team manage class. You can name it anything, but usually I name it such a way that easy for us to understand. I'm going to include one static variable, which is to create the UI template. Let me add it here. So this static template is the one which would have all the UI. So basically the UI would have the top bar and the tab control, plus the tab controls have different options. Inside the options I would have all the controls to manage the teams. So it's pretty much slightly a complex design which I came up with. Let me copy paste the existing design which I have already. Okay, so I'm just going to put it here, paste it here. Okay, so this is the complete HTML which I came up with for the UI. So we just, let me just save the UI alone, and this HTML component is inside the template HTML variable. So this variable has to be included in here. So right now, if you see here, I'm having this UI. So instead of this UI, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to replace this with the team class management. So for that, I need to include the Teams management. So let me import. I'm using the Teams management, which is on the other tab, and I'm going to call the property of that. Okay, that's it. So now what it does is the whole UI has to be changed to the template which I am using. Since I have included the Bootstrap and the Font Awesome, the UI has to come with the Font Awesome. Let me open it. Okay, see here, the whole UI is now pretty much is there. The top border, the top one is the navigation bar which comes with the Bootstrap, and I have the tab control. This is the tab control. Tab control has 3 tabs. One is the get teams, create teams, and create channels. Get teams just have one button. Later we would wire up that button using the JavaScript code. And you have a create teams. The create teams has several of the sections and the components you can see here. it takes all the properties or the values to create a team. I'm adding it here. This is a normal bootstrap design, so this is pretty much there. Okay, so the UI is in there. So now the problem is I need to invoke the Graph API first. So when I invoke the Graph API, the first time to invoke, you have to get access from the API access in the SharePoint. Let's start doing that. Let's start programming the Graph client. I'm going to declare some Graph client API so that I can use it within this main class for subsequent call. So let me call the Graph client to be the Graph client and declare it to be null. So I'm declaring it to any, and I'm also declaring one more variable, which is my ID, which is like GUID. This is required such a way that I want my logged in user GUID, which is from the AD. So this is required because every time when you create a team or a channel, I'm adding the one who is creating as a owner by default. I'm not asking them to select the owner. So for that I need the GUID of the user. So this API would give you the GUID of from the Graph API. I declare the variable. So now I'm going to call some methods. Two methods. One is to initialize the Graph client, and the second one is to get the GUID. So let me declare the functions. So the first function will take in a parameter of the client, which is a Graph client, and set it to the local variable. And the second one would be it will just set it to the local variable. And the second one, I'm going to call create another parameter or the method, the function. The second function would be more of, let me use this one, comment few of the things. Okay, so I'm calling the Graph API client to get my ID. So team manager class get my ID. That's it. Okay, so I'm calling this method. So this initialize control is the first method to be called within the jQuery load. I'm going to change here. So team HTM dot initialize control this dot context dot Graph client, MS Graph client factory, and I'm going to use the Graph client method for getting the variable. So that's how it should be. Okay, so what I'm doing is that I'm calling the initialize control. This initialize controls, what it does is it passes the Graph client. The Graph client you can get only from this web part main web part code. I pass it to my class and set it into my local variable. So later I can call this Graph client anywhere to invoke the Graph method. So when I use this and start calling this method, so probably let's see, I just refresh, and if you check into the function, the Graph client function, I think F12. So let me check here. No errors here. So probably I don't know whether it had got the GUID. Let me print the GUID in the UI somewhere so that you can check whether the Graph client API is being queried. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to uncheck this and save this, so that if this Graph API is successful, it will just print my logged in user ID GUID, so that I can confirm the Graph client API is called. Okay, so now the build is over, nothing is there. So to debug we should use the F12. I'm using the F12 here, and if you see here, there is a error which tells some junk error, which means you cannot predict that what is that error is about. I was wondering for long what is that error about, but this error says that it's a replace of undefined or something. This means that the graph client API is not executed properly. So that's why you could see this error, and it is like kind of misleading. So for this, now you need to make sure that you need to give the permission, API access permission, within the SharePoint management tool. So for that, you need to go back to your SharePoint administration. Let me go to the SharePoint administration. So this is your main admin console for the overall Office 365 tenant or the M365 tenant. So how do you go there? You just click here and then this admin. So this is the admin, main admin, which I am using. So under this admin, you should go to SharePoint. So I'm now under the SharePoint administration, and under the SharePoint administration advanced, you would see the API access. So this is the place where you could allow the API access for the Graph API. So to make sure that your web part is requesting it, you need to deploy that web part at least once into your environment, so that it would request. So these two requests, if you see here, it is my old request. I'm going to just say approve. So this request has to be approved. So once it has been approved, then it will be added into your web part. Let me approve this as well. And once this has been approved, your web part will be given access to the Graph API. Okay, let's start invoke the Graph API and see how it goes. So now I set it to approve. Hopefully when I refresh this, it should trigger the Graph API request. The Graph API request. So see here, the error comes again, which means that the SPFX web part is still not given approval. Sometime it takes a while, but sometime when you run the gulp serve, it might not raise a request in the Graph API. So in this case, what you should do is you should deploy the web part. So now I'm going to deploy the web part and make sure that it gives a request there, then everything goes fine. Okay, so let me close this SharePoint, go back to the code, stop the execution, Control C. So now you should do is that you should package this web part, so that I'm going to deploy it. So before I package, I make sure that the version, let me increment it to 5 to make sure it is the version. So now I'm going to run gulp package to do the package. So I'm executing the gulp package solution. So the gulp package solution will create a package, but okay, it gives you the warning as well. It had created the package. Let me go to the folder and check temp. No, usually the package would be under SharePoint. Yes, solution. So let me open in the file explorer, and there is a SPFX Teams-management package, so which I would be using there. So let me copy that, and I need to include that into the app catalog. Let me save this, and okay, I would just copy the folder path, and let me go back to the SharePoint, and this is my SharePoint here. Let me open my SharePoint first. So this is my SharePoint site all contents, view site all contents. Let me zoom this to 100%. Yes, so this is my SharePoint. So here you need to go to the app packages, apps for SharePoint. So I'm going to just upload, choose the folder, and you would see the folders list here. Folder is here. Now I'm going to select the app, and this is draft version, just for the command. I'm uploading it. Okay, so once you upload, it would say, it will ask you to, for the local host, but deploy it. So it should successfully deploy. Okay, so it has been deployed. This is the one which is deployed, which is earlier. Let me refresh this so that I can check all the apps which has been deployed. So it is here, it has been deployed now. Yes, this is the one which is deployed right away, Teams Management app. So once it is deployed, now I need to create a page and add this as a web part. Let me do that in a page. So I need to go back to the site content, refresh the page. So now I'm going to add the app which has been deployed now, which is the Teams Management -app. So I click on that. So when I click on that, it will add the Teams Management, which is still pending. It will take a while from the app catalog to add it into your site. Okay, so I waited for 1 or 2 minutes. So now this Teams Management app is up and then running. So now I'm going to create a new page. So I already created a page under site pages, a plain blank page. I would just add the web part there. Let me add the web part. Let me look for Teams Management. I should have 2 Teams Management. One is here and then this one. Yes. Okay. So if you see here, it is not. It is just looking for the gulp serve because it is just the package. It is not the complete package. So now what I need to do is I need to run the gulp serve no browser. So once I start running it, I think the web part should start working. The request has been made. Hopefully it works. Okay. So now if you see here in the original site, the web part is showing up. So it's a good sign that the UIs are all working. Let me republish it. Okay, I republished it and make sure that I click on the refresh so that it gets the request first. So this step you have to do it once at least so that Graph API access is invoked into your admin control. I don't know why it is like that, but for me this step makes me to work for the Graph API invoke. Okay, so now this has been invoked. Let's go back to the admin center again. Let's see here. Let me go back here. Okay, so if those Graph APIs are invoked, you'll have to see the pending requests here, or those pending requests, it would come for the Graph API. Let me run it again. Control C. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to invoke as a second call. Copy this, close, and then invoke it again. Invoke it. So now it will look for the graph. So run this gulp serve. Now browser. Let's see. Once this has been picked up. Yeah, so this has been invoked. So now this has been invoked. Hopefully the Graph API access has went through. Let me check the button. Okay, see here my GUID has come. So now my invoke is successful. The Graph API has successfully invoked and the GUID is there. So which it proves that the Graph API client is working. Now we are good to go with further steps to add the API for the Teams API. Okay, let's start programming for the Teams API. Now I'm going to add methods to call the Teams API from the Graph client, which would get the list of all the teams from the graph. So this is the method. Okay, this is a method. It's a simple get all method. I'm just going to invoke the Graph API. If you see here, the API is like groups and the beta version of it, and I'm filtering it by saying that it is by team. So basically Microsoft Teams are all like Office 365 groups filtered by how it is provisioned. So in this case, anything provisioned by the name team, I filter that and then get it as a response. So once I get the response, I'll create a UI. So create team list. Let me add the details for create team list. The create team list is another function which will let me copy that, and there is one more function which I should use to set all the variables for the teams, so that this can be used there. So the set variables is the one which I needed. Let me be this one. Okay, so I'm copying all the default functions which we need. So now I copied most of the needed function, which is the create team list and set team cards. So basically what I'm doing is I'm getting the teams and creating a list in the format which I wanted. The Bootstrap has several components. I'm using the list group and the team card and setting up all the values. So this is the function which sets the variable or the properties from all the teams into my controls, and I'm getting all the channels as well. If you see here, I'm getting the channels for the particular team, and this channel I'm filling up in the table format, which is the TDTR format. And also for each channel there is a file path that also I am adding in. So this will add a file path URL which is in the SharePoint. So hopefully this is done, and when I use the Control S, it will start to save. You can see here the process is coming up, and this is still in the gulp, no browser, so that's why it reloads, stops at the reload. You'll have to manually reload it here. Hopefully everything goes well. Yeah, and let me get all the teams. Yes, perfect, it works. So if you see here, there are different color icons. The red icon, which means that it is a private team. The green icon is the one which is the public team, and there is one blue icon which is if this icon is present in the team, which means you are a member of that team. This is the one team which I am not a member of it. When you click on that, you see all the details here. This is the one I used the set card method to set all the variable, and you can see the get channel. I use the get channel API and finding the URL of the channel plus the file tab. If you go back to your team, this is my team, original teams, and I'm not a member of it. So see here, I cannot see not a member of a team, just to prove that it is working. I'm not a member of that team. I'm not a so if I just go to join, you would see here not a member of team. I'm not a member. And dev team, you can see the same dev team inside your SharePoint. Dev team, you can see all the settings. Everything is enabled almost except the get settings, and it would get all the teams channel. So all the channels it would get. This is the channel URL. You can click on that to navigate directly to the channel, and this is the file path. You can see the file path here on the file tab, architecture. This is the files tab. So this is the one which is shown in there. For a sample, what I am doing is, let me go back to one of the sample, which is Office Dev. So Office Dev should have several. Okay, so if you take an Office Dev, there is one channel which is called architecture, and there is a one at the right side. This one indicates that there is one folder or a file within that. So let me check that in the original teams. Office Dev, general architecture. If you go to the files, you would see here there is one folder. So that count really means that there are some content inside. The number of files or a folder inside. So the Graph API even returns how many of the file within there, and even returns you the file size, the total size of the folder or the document library. So all these are fetched using the Graph API. You can see the Graph API which is processed here. If I use the get channel file, Nothing but you pass the teams, team ID, channels, channel ID, and the file folder. Just say files folder. It will return a JSON file. The JSON file will have all these details, which is like folder and the child count. So that is the navigational property which you can find it in the return JSON of the file. And just to give an idea, maybe I think I can show you the JSON return format. Okay, ignore the errors. Sometime you will see the errors. So these are the channels, and you would see all the details here. Office 365 development, all the channel related details here. And the channel file, I think it should have around here, web URL, ID, display name. This is all the channel detail. Okay, so that's how the Graph API is being invoked. Let me add further code to have the create teams as well as the create channels. So these codes have been added as well into the into my SPFX export. Later I would share the full source code. You can get the full source code from my GitHub, and you can see how these APIs have been invoked. Let me just run through one or two functionalities, see how. So to complete the functionality, I created one more class, teams create, and I added all the methods which is required to create a channel, create a team. Later you can go through all my code in the GitHub. Probably at this time I cannot run through all the code. So this is the code which I have already created. Let me save this so that it is compiled. Let's refresh this. So when I refresh and go back to the create teams and give it a name. So let's create a team which is called demo team sample, and the description may be this is live demo and some sample text. So I'm going to just say some of them checkboxes and allow the Giphy and maybe moderate. Okay, so these three settings I have set it out and given the basic, made it as private. That's it. So these are the settings I'm setting in, and then I'm creating a group or the team. You can see here it would start to create, successfully created the team. That's it. So hopefully the team is created. Let's go back to the teams, demo team sample. It is here. So previously it was not there, it is there, and you can see the channel settings. Sorry, let me go to the team settings. Okay, settings, guest settings, allow guest to create and update channel. Let me check what the settings which I have given. Allow to create and update channel, and the Giphy fun settings, Giphy, enable the Giphy, and it is moderate. And this should be the private teams, which you should be seeing it somewhere on the settings here. I don't know where. Tools, let's see, manage teams. Okay, manage and guest, somewhere it should show it is a private channel. Okay, and let's go back, get teams here, the demo teams here, and see here it is a private channel and I'm a member of it. So every time when you create a team, by default I'm adding myself or the one who is creating as a owner. So that's why it is always a member of. And there is only one channel which is general. For some reason, first time you will not get the file folder unless you start using it. Maybe it takes a while. So that's why you don't see the file folder. Once you start creating it, you should be able to see that. Probably I will demonstrate that as well. You go to the general files. See, first time it takes a while. It takes a while to provision the SharePoint. And once the SharePoint is there, the document library will come up. So give it a time, then you can check. So that's about creating the teams. So now let's create a channel. So for creating a channel, if you don't see your channel, create your teams here. You can just refresh, your latest team would come in. This is the team. I'm going to make it as a standard team, standard channel, or maybe I make it as a private channel. And always I want to make it as a private or the favorite. Create a single channel for now, just a channel live, and description should be something like. So when I create a channel, it should work, hopefully. So single channel creation, channel creating, channel moderation settings are not valid for standard channels. So basically what I am doing is that this is for moderation settings. There is a separate moderation settings for channel. This would fail for private channels. If you see here, there is a patch method. Call channel, let me go back to here, yes. Call update panel, update channel once it creates. So you cannot directly set the moderation settings using the JSON. So for that you need to create a channel first and update the moderation settings. So I'm trying to update the moderation settings using the update or the patch method. For a private channel it might fail. For a standard channel it should work. I'm showing this to show how the error message is displayed when a team is created or the channel is created. Also it gives you the URL of the channel which is created at the latest. Give it a time. Sometime when you click on it immediately it might work, but sometime you would get resource not found or page not found because it is under the processing. So give it a while before you click on this link for a channel. There is an option to create a multiple channel as well. Let me select my the CSV path. For upload, you can use the CSV file. This is the format I'm following it. The first column will always be the channel name, and the second column can be the channel description. And make sure that you don't have any heading. So you don't need the heading. If you include a heading, that will also be a part of channel. So I'm just taking only the first two columns. I'll ignore all other columns if you have it. So I'm going to use this file for sample. I'll just use only the test upload. So the test upload has only two channels, two entries. So let's see that. Select the file, upload test is there, parse. See here there are only two channels. So in that Excel I have only two channels. Just to make sure, I'll use that Excel. See here, this is the Excel. It has only two channels. It displays all the channel which is in there as a table format. Once you're okay with that, make sure these things are there. Let me take it as a standard, and I want to make both the channel as the favorite. Let's create a channel. So hopefully, multiple channel selection is being selected, and it will start to create channel 1 completed, and channel 2, creating channel 2, and channel 2 is trying to complete. Yes. So both the channel has been completed successfully, and you can have this scroll bar. I added this scroll bar just because it doesn't go long. It's up to you. You can change the UI. So these two channels have been created already. So let me go back to Teams. Channel has been created. Okay, previously the test channel, which is private, it's all been created, and you would see the details here. Let me check whether the SharePoint is provisioned. Yeah, SharePoint is provisioned now. So for example, you can even create new folder, which is test folder here. So what it does is it creates a test folder for channel 1. Remember, it is for channel 1. I added test folder, and I'm going to add one more folder. So these two folders have been created inside channel 1. So now when I go back to my, this is the teams. When I go back to my teams, you would see the demo team. You would see the channel 1. See here, it has picked up. So previously it was not picking up the folder URL, but now it picked up the folder URL, and you can directly navigate to this folder, and it has two files. So when you click on that, it takes you to the file directly there. Okay, and it is SharePoint, so it will directly go to SharePoint. It will not go through the Teams, because files and folders within the Teams is a SharePoint. So that's how about the Teams management. Hopefully you liked it. Share, like, subscribe to my channel if you find this as much useful tool for the teams management within SPFX. Thank you so much.